Welcome to Breathe California TV. I'm Terry Trumbull. I'm a volunteer for Breathe California, the lung health organization in the state of California. Today we're going to be talking about wood smoke. Many of you may be surprised at how much of an air pollution problem wood smoke can be in the winter. We're going to be talking with representatives of the Bay Area Air Quality Management District, and they've just recently amended the rules. So we think there'll be something you'll want to know if you've got a fireplace. See you in 30 seconds.
It's given me a chance to get out and be with people who has the same problem. And it helps you to manage your life better too, because you hear different things from each person. And it's just been really helpful in many ways.
Welcome back. This is Breathe California TV. Breathe California, just here in Santa Clara County last year, helped 150,000 people with breathing difficulties. Like most health organizations, our efforts are principally focused on helping people that have developed problems due to smoking or air pollution. But this show tries to focus on preventing the damages, and as you heard in the opening, wood smoke is a major problem during the winter. So we're blessed with having a couple of people to talk to us about it. Tracy Lee, who actually enforces the rule, and Lisa Fasano, who's the communications director for the Air District. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So talk a little bit about wood smoke. I think most of us are thinking of having a fireplace, and we don't really think of air pollution coming from there. It's either factories, which the district's done a wonderful job of controlling, or more modernly, cars, trucks. How does wood smoke fit into all that?
Yeah, well, wood smoke is the #1 source of wintertime air pollution in the Bay Area. And in the winter, when we have cold and very stagnant air, the wood smoke gets trapped at close to ground level, making it difficult for people to breathe, especially those who are young, elderly, and those who have respiratory illnesses. And so despite having a wood smoke voluntary program, Winter Spare the Air program, for nearly 2 decades, we have not been able to meet the federal health standards for fine particulate matter, also known as PM 2.5. So in 2008, the Air District adopted our wood smoke rule, making it illegal to burn wood and any solid fuels when the air quality is designated as unhealthy and when a Winter Spare the Air alert is declared.
So most of us are used to thinking of a spare the air alert during the summer when we have ozone and other particulate problems. Is the public caught on to the fact that spare the air is also a winter problem?
We've spent a lot of time trying to message to folks that spare the air is both a winter problem and a summer problem. And they're 2 distinct pollutants: ozone, as you said, smog in the summertime, and particulate matter in the winter. And so it's the particulate matter that we're going after in this program. And the program runs November 1st through the end of February. So
explain a little bit. You know, I'm burning a fire. I don't associate that with particulates. What is a particulate, and what's the problem it's causing?
Well, wood smoke generates very fine particulate, also known as PM 2.5, and these tiny
These
particles...
are just particles or pieces of soot or something?
That's correct. It's very tiny particles that can lodge deeply into your lungs and have very significant health impacts. You know, asthma, bronchitis, reduced lung function, even cancer and heart attacks. And so, you know, it's very important that we reduce, you know, the particulate emissions in the wintertime to protect public health.
These are very fine particles. They're about 1/10 the size of a human hair, so they can go in through the respiratory system and bypass the lungs and make it into the bloodstream, and can be very problematic for people in their health.
So Lisa read my mind. We've had Breathe California's board of directors has 3 or 4 doctors on it, and a number of them have come here and explained what you just said, that we have a wonderful system designed to keep crud out of our lungs and to push it out. And what you're saying is just repeat it.
It's just that these particles are so small, they're so fine that they bypass that wonderful system that we have built into us. They bypass the lungs and the respiratory system, and they go through and get into the bloodstream and can cause further health problems and can exacerbate respiratory problems. So it's very important for us to reduce the amount of particulate matter that we have, specifically in the winter months when it tends to build up.
So we used to have an earlier rule before the, was it 2007 you said, Tracy?
2008.
2008 rule. And my family, when that first came in, and I'm just guessing late 90s, maybe 2000, we would burn once a year on Christmas while we opened presents. And by 2003, we quit outright because our perception was we were contaminating ourselves. Is that true? Is wood smoke a problem in the house that's burning it, or for the people outside, or both?
It's both, actually. 10 to 15% of the particulate from the smoke that you're burning actually enters into your home and gets trapped in your home. And your windows and doors are normally closed in the winter months, so it stays there. The rest of it goes out into the yard, and when we have these conditions that trap the smoke near your home and your neighbor's home, it builds up in your backyard, your front yard. So on Christmas morning, when the kids come out with their new skateboards or their Razor scooters and want to go out and play, they've got unhealthy air to go out there and breathe when they're out there using their new Christmas gifts. So it's really important for us to reduce the PM so that we don't have that unhealthy air right in and around our homes.
And when you say unhealthy air, when it's outside, it's because it's still, it's not moving, right?
That's right. It doesn't blow away. We don't have the normal air conditioning that we normally get here in the Bay Area that blows our pollution up and out.
So it used to be, well, let me back off and say my wife and I and our dog walk at least a couple of times a day, probably 4 miles total. And I used to get these magnificent smells from people burning fireplaces and kind of have wonderful feelings of visiting my uncle's ranch or us having a fireplace when I was growing up. And then I all of a sudden said, I bet you that's toxic or loaded with particulates. Is that an accurate perception if you're smelling wood burning outside?
That's correct. Yeah, it definitely is. Lisa, maybe you can
So,
add to that?
you know, the thing about wood smoke is that it's much like cigarette smoke. It took many years for us to understand the hazards with cigarette smoke, but now we clearly understand them. Well, now studies have gone further to look at wood smoke or smoke in general, and we're finding that it has many of the same chemical properties as cigarette smoke. The problem is that when you burn in your fireplace, 10 pounds of wood produces enough smoke equivalent to hundreds of cigarettes. So you're putting out a lot more smoke in a shorter period of time than you would if you were just even having a cigarette. And we all know that cigarette smoking is unhealthy. So the more that we learn, the more that we've done science on this, we've found that that the smoke from wood burning is very unhealthy, and we want to protect the public from that.
So when I bought my house in 1974, I hadn't been smart enough to burn a fire. It had a fireplace. We lit it up, and everything, it seemed like, was going into the room. Is there some sort of certification program or way that people know what to buy?
Yes, the rule actually requires that if anybody is looking to purchase an alternative option instead of burning in their open hearth fireplace, to have an EPA certified device. So that's all you can buy actually currently in the Bay Area. Everything has to be certified.
Meaning that it's not even legal to buy anything other than a EPA certified fireplace.
Correct. So EPA certified wood stove or fireplace insert. And when I talk about EPA certified, it means that it's a wood burning heater that essentially meets the emission limits set forth by EPA.
So what about natural gas? Is that going to comply? It's not wood. But
Correct. Natural gas is much cleaner and more efficient for heating, and so we encourage people in the to basically switch to gas or electric heating devices as an alternate form of heat.
And the difference is if you're using your fireplace often, if you install natural gas, you can use it throughout the winter season, even when we call a winter spare the air alert. But if you put a wood stove in, then you can only use that when a winter spare the air alert is not in place. So natural gas is the best way to go.
So I want to back off a little bit because you suffer from a terrible acronym, being the BAAQMD. What in the heck does that stand for? I assume you've checked for any other name that might work better. But anyhow, what is the Air District and what's their role in our community?
So the Bay Area Air Quality Management District is the regional agency that's charged with regulating and enforcing those regulations on stationary pollution sources in the 9-county region that ring the Bay Area. And in fact, we were the first region in the state of California that was established back in 1955. Air pollution here in the Bay Area was worse than it was anywhere in the state. And so the Bay Area Air District was formed, and one of the first rules we put in place was to ban backyard garbage burning, because back then everyone had a burn barrel and they were burning garbage and burning it at dumps as well. And so we put a stop to that, and we have continued to put regulations forth to regulate the stationary sources of air pollution that we have here in the Bay Area, which includes refineries or large factories, metal melting facilities, but also smaller things like diesel engines and gas stations.
And just to emphasize your point, I had a grandmother that lived in LA, and we went to the opening of Disneyland, and it was pretty scary to see her, 1955, burning garbage in her backyard. I mean, Tracy's talking about people burning wood in a fireplace. Burning garbage in your backyard, you're taking any kind of crud you feel like and throwing it in.
Yeah, well, back then it wasn't a normal practice, and so we outlawed that right away. But even in the wintertime, people often burn wrapping paper during the holidays and put that in their fireplace when they're burning, because they think that that's allowed to do. But actually burning wrapping paper is considered burning trash, and that's illegal all the time. And there's many toxic materials that go up from burning wrapping paper and those kinds of things. So we would encourage people to not do that ever.
So being an old garbage guy, in 1966 we banned burning of garbage at landfills. It used to be before then we just throw a match in and let them go. So we're talking about wood burning, the new amended rules that we have, and the hazards and risks that come from it. We'll be back in 30 seconds.
The nice thing about Better Breathers Club is we go in and there's other people sitting around with oxygen. It's almost a relief that everybody looks the same in the room. It's a funny thing to say, but it's a good feeling. Breathe California means having resources available to us that will help guide us and make our lives easier.
Welcome back. This is Breathe California TV. I'm Terry Trumbull. I wear a hat as a volunteer as the Environmental Health Chair, which really means that I try to focus these programs on preventing damage. And we're blessed with having two people that are trying to do that for the Bay Area Air Quality Management District. Tracy Lee, who's a compliance officer, and Lisa Fasano, who's the communication director. They're talking about what you can and can't do to burn wood here. So what haven't we hit that you want to get to?
Well,
I'd like to talk about some of the key changes to the rule that was recently amended in October of 2015. There are some key requirements that people should be aware of, and one of them, we tightened up an exemption that would require those who are burning wood as their sole source of heat to have an EPA certified wood heater, a wood stove or wood insert, and also register their wood heater in the Air District's registration program. And
So you know who is dependent on it. Do you have any inspection program? I'm not sure how you get indoors to make sure that they actually are using it as their sole source of heat?
That's where the registration program comes in handy, because it allows us to see which households are complying with the rule, and focus on which ones aren't and help them comply with the rule. And so with this upcoming registration program that's effective November 1st, 2016, that's right around the corner.
So I'm not sure you've got the resources to do it, but it seems to me you, in many cases, don't even need to go in the house to check that. You could go and take a look at land use building permits and see what people have allowed. You can tell I spent way too much time on a planning commission, but we generally would find 3 or 4 people a year that just went ahead and did things in violation of the law. Generally, not on just on this. So, Lord, how are you going to do enforcement here? It seems to me it was a pretty big task before you've made it even bigger, I would think, with the amendments.
Right. We do still have our routine wood smoke patrols, on a daily basis, and especially when a winter spare the air alert is declared. And so we do have people, inspection staff monitoring and making sure everyone's complying with the rule.
So the Air District has done a wonderful job of lowering the amount of air pollution here, but Lisa led off by talking about we're still trying to meet the federal levels. Aren't the state even harder to meet than these? So we've still got a ways to go, I would assume. I hope everyone can get in compliance, because we do have more to do.
Well, we have come a long ways since 2008, and although we have made improvements in the Bay Area with reducing wintertime fine particulate emissions, there's still more that needs to be done, and we've seen a flattening out of improvements, and so we are still seeing high concentrations of wood smoke in neighborhoods. And these areas can be, they tend to be areas that have no natural gas service, where residents are burning wood as their primary source of heat. And they are also, areas that are, low-lying areas with very dense foliage where wood smoke can get trapped. And so, and also, communities with older homes and with many of them with open hearth fireplaces that have not been converted. So these are, some of our concerns, that we are trying to reduce and transition the Bay Area to much cleaner and more efficient heating options.
And it's important to note, Terry, that even when we, if we don't call a spare the air alert, there are neighborhoods that can be impacted with a lot of wood smoke just because there happens to be burning in the neighborhood, a high concentration of burning in the neighborhood. So even when an alert isn't called, it can still be unhealthy in certain pockets.
One of the things I learned when I moved here in '73 is we have the most diverse set of weather environments in the world for the area. So, which is to lead to the question, it would seem that there are ways that, even though you haven't called the entire 9-county area for a spare the air alert, that you've got temperature inversion conditions or other things that could cause localized problems.
We certainly do have localized problems, but as Tracy mentioned, in places where you have high dense foliage, or you have a 1-story home next to a 2-story home, and the smoke just goes out and gets trapped next to that 2-story home and goes in the next door neighbor's yard. You've got these kind of conditions, because we all live in close proximity to each other, that can cause unhealthy, smoky air just around one neighbor's home. And we don't want to have that. We want to have clean air for everyone in the Bay Area.
Yeah, absolutely. So this has been very interesting, because I think the average person doesn't think, at least until this program started, that burning wood could be much of a problem. Do you have any sense whether this means builders are less likely or more likely to put fireplaces in? Because you always associate with a new home that somehow or other that's your fantasy about having a fireplace. But I would hope that there's less of that happening, knowing this, but I don't know the facts on it.
Right. So with the rule, one of the requirements that we strengthen is for new building construction. And so effective in November of 2016, new building construction will be prohibited from installing a wood stove, a wood insert, And going forward, they need to install the cleanest and most efficient heaters, which are, the gas and electric heating options.
So I'm not sure I heard that right. You're not going to be able to do wood burning at all? Is that what?
No, for new building construction, so new buildings being built, they will have to have the cleaner heating devices, so gas and electric and wood burning.
So they could do wood burning, but it has to be EPA certified. Is that what you're saying?
No, currently in our rule until...
I'm trying to be as slow about this as possible.
That's okay. Effective November 1st, 2016, that's when the requirement will come in. Up until then, they are still allowed to put in an EPA certified wood burning device, but moving forward past November, they're not allowed to anymore.
So they'll only be able to install a natural gas device, or in some cases, electric fireplaces. But open hearth fireplaces, you can't put those in new construction.
Yeah. Well, and I like it. It will just have to have the public learn to adapt to all of this.
Well, it's important. It also extends out to like backyard people who are putting these landscapes in the back where they're putting an outdoor fire pit or a fireplace in their backyard. You won't be able to use that or install a fireplace like that either. So it's outside the home and inside the home.
So even though you swear in a stack of Bibles and Korans that you're only going to use it in the summer, won't be able to put those in?
For new construction.
Yeah. So again, I like that a lot. I just think that the health risks, for me, it's more toxic related. My students are always astounded when I show them a safety data sheet that's required for employees, and you look at the one for wood and it talks about all the ways that they're toxic independent of the particulate
Yeah,
issue.
it matches up very closely with cigarette smoke.
Yeah, which is doggone scary because everybody knows the risk associated with cigarette smoke. So one of the misconceptions I think people have is that somehow the Bay Area is the only one in the country that's controlling wood smoke. Is that true?
No, it's not true, in fact. Southern California, South Coast District has a wood burning rule. The Monterey County Air Pollution Control District has areas that they put a wood burning rule in provision because they've got some low-lying valleys where they have serious wood burning problems. The San Joaquin Valley has a rule. Puget Sound area of Oregon. There's other parts throughout the United States who have adopted wood burning rules. Denver, Utah, we see them all over the United States, and it's because there's this this renewed recognition that wood smoke is unhealthy. It's got the same unhealthy properties as cigarette smoke, but it comes out in even more quantities, higher quantities than cigarette smoke, and so we need to do things to remove it from the places where people live.
Yeah, it's amazing. I worked for EPA in Washington when it was first created, and we had to review the first set of clean air plans from each of the states, and it looked to us like the worst area for air pollution in the country in the winter was Denver because of all of the wood burning they were doing. And so I knew asking the question that Colorado had at least done it. So it's just important for people to understand that this is a problem anywhere they burn wood, and I wouldn't be surprised if, my best friends from school live in Augusta, Maine, and I can't imagine that they aren't going to have the same sort of problems there with everybody burning wood.
Yeah, we're noticing, every year that there are new states or new cities that are putting provisions in place to reduce the amount of wood smoke that they see in their neighborhoods.
So I'm catching you guys off guard on this, I think, but is wood burning a significant contributor to climate change emissions?
Well, certainly black carbon from wood smoke is a significant contributor, and that's something we want to reduce as well, because the smoke goes up into the air, and then that black carbon that comes from the soot actually makes its way up in the upper atmosphere and eventually lands on icebergs and glaciers, and then it
melts them
more quickly. So we want to reduce that as well, but from an immediate health aspect, it's a problem for us just living in and around our homes.
Yeah, I mean, obviously for me, any kind of burning is going to be cranking up CO2. Yeah. I mean, naively, when I worked at EPA, we thought that perfect combustion was water and CO2. And by 2007, even the U.S. Supreme Court said any CO2 coming into the air is an air pollutant.
Is an air problem, yep.
So we got about 2 minutes left. Anything else that you want to try to work in?
Well, I think it's important for people to recognize that burning in their wood stove or fireplace really is unhealthy. And it's unhealthy for the residents in their home, and it's unhealthy for their neighbors as well. But if they do choose to burn, we would ask them to check before they burn. We have information out that we make available. They can go to sparetheair.org.
You got to share the other languages.
We have it in Spanish and we have it in Chinese as well.
Yeah.
And we have information up on our website in those languages as well. But they should check before they burn by going to sparetheair.org or by calling 1-877-4-NO-BURN to determine whether or not it's a no-burn day or not.
So I'm upset with my next door neighbor for burning, and I don't have the guts to go tell him to stop. Is there a way to call in and report that?
Definitely. The Air District has an odor hotline. It's 1-800-334-ODOR, odor. And so, when you call in a complaint, an Air District inspector will respond, and you can remain anonymous, and we will go and conduct our investigations.
So I've never done that on that line, but I've used the Air District line 5 or 6 times for cars that are producing pollution that looks like your jacket, and called in, and I gather those have been pretty effective at getting changes.
They have. People who are called in because they have a smoking vehicle get a letter from the district that says that they had been reported as having a smoking vehicle and that they are advised to go get their vehicle inspected and make any corrections, because not only is it bad for air quality, but they're also losing out on their mileage when their automobile isn't as working as efficiently as it should.
So just quicker yes or no, I assume if you did the same thing on the wood burning, actually odor line, you get a letter to people. Is that what happens? First notice?
In terms of a violation with a wood smoke? Well, yes, that's correct. We do have a letter that gets sent out, but we do also do our routine patrols again and make sure that the violation isn't
Yeah, there are other
continually occurring.
enforcement techniques.
Correct.
So we got about 30 seconds left. Quick wrap up.
Well, a first violation for wood smoke for burning in your fireplace is $100. It increases from there. We want people to check before they burn by going to sparetheair.org or calling 1-877-4-NO-BURN. And we want people to rethink wood burning altogether. And if they have the means to install a natural gas insert into their fireplace so that they get that same ambiance, but they aren't putting out the particulate.
Great. So we've been talking about wood burning with the Bay Area Air Quality Management District leaders in this area. Next week we'll have something similar. See you then.